judge what we cannot create. We point fingers but don't pick up a brush. We tear down what others build. The world is full of people who know exactly what's wrong with everything. They have opinions about books they haven't written, movies they couldn't make, songs that would never come from their throats. The critic sits in darkness, pointing at the light others created and calling it insufficient. Never quite right for someone who has never tried to make anything right themselves. Creation is terrifying. Criticism is safe. One requires courage. The other requires only a voice and the willingness to use it against someone else's dream. People line up to tell you what you did wrong, where you failed, how you could have done better. But ask them to show you how, and they disappear. The artist puts their soul on display and waits for judgment. The critic hides their emptiness behind clever words, behind standards they could never meet, and expertise they never earned. Everyone knows what art should be, but very few want to create it. The artist fails publicly. The critic fails privately. One leaves something behind. The other leaves only the memory of their disapproval. We worship those who create and become those who destroy. We celebrate the maker and become the breaker. It's easier this way. The world needs fewer critics and more creators. But we keep choosing the opposite. We keep choosing the easier path. The path that requires nothing but judgment. Nothing but the ability to say what's wrong without ever showing what's right. The artist asks, "What if?" and builds something from nothing. The critic asks, "Why not?" and builds nothing from something. One adds to the world. The other subtracts from it. We all start as artists. Children creating without judgment, drawing stick figures, making up songs, building castles from sand and believing in magic. Then we learn to criticize. First others, then ourselves. We learn that creation is risky and criticism is safe. We learn to hide our attempts and showcase our judgments. We become experts at tearing down and amateurs at building up. The world fills with people who know everything about what's wrong and nothing about what's right, who can spot every flaw but create nothing flawless, who demand perfection from everyone except themselves. The artist works in solitude, creating something from nothing. The critic works in public, destroying something into nothing. This world doesn't need more people pointing out what's wrong. It needs more people willing to create something right. More people willing to fail publicly, to be imperfect openly, to try badly rather than criticize perfectly. The artist accepts failure as part of creation. The critic demands success from everyone but themselves. One understands that making something is harder than breaking it. The other pretends they're the same difficulty. We've created a world where everyone feels qualified to judge, and no one feels qualified to create. Where opinion matters more than effort. Where criticism counts more than contribution. Where it's easier to tear down than build up. The artist risks everything every time they share their work. The critic risks nothing every time they share their judgment. One puts skin in the game. The other keeps their skin safe. But we need both. Artists to create and critics to guide. The problem is when everyone becomes a critic and no one remains an artist. When judgment replaces creation. When evaluation replaces innovation. When everyone knows what's wrong but no one tries to make it right. The world becomes smaller when we choose criticism over creation. Darker when we choose judgment over joy. Emptier when we choose safety over risk. We need more people willing to fail at creating than succeed at criticizing. More people willing to try imperfectly than judge perfectly. Not everyone is an artist, but everyone can try. Everyone can create something. Everyone can add rather than subtract. Everyone can build rather than break. We choose sides every day. Create or criticize. Build or break. Risk or remain safe. The world keeps score, and criticism is winning. Judgment defeats joy. Safety conquers courage. But somewhere in the darkness, someone is still creating, still risking, still bleeding for beauty, still believing that making something matters more than breaking it down, still choosing the harder path, the more vulnerable way, the more human direction. Not everyone is an artist, but everyone is a fucking critic. And that's exactly backwards from what the world needs.